Sonic the Hedgehog Relaunch, Chapter 4, You see a light wherever you go. You have to face it again and again. Tom and Maddie were in the car about to return home, when Tom's phone began to ring. He checked his phone to see who was calling. He immediately answered the FaceTime call when he noticed that it was Sonic calling. He was expecting to see Sonic, but it was Tails instead. Not only that, but Tails was obviously not at the house.
Oh, good! Tom, Andy, we have a serious problem!
Tails looked worried.
Tails, what happened to Sonic? Are you what?
Maddie cut him off.
Give him a chance to answer first.
He could tell that Maddie was trying her best to remain calm.
We're in the forest, a little ways outside of town. We were attacked by a powerful black hedgehog, Sonic!
Knuckles cut the fox off.
Hey, he's coming around.
Knuckles informed, out of view. If Knuckles said that someone was coming around, then that meant Sonic was unconscious before that moment. That worried Tom and Maddie by millions.
Tails, do you have glass stuck in your fur?
Maddie asked. For some reason, Tom had noticed that small little detail.
Yes, I'm fine though.
Tails replied. Before he flipped the screen around, Tom almost gasped at the sight of Sonic laying unconscious on the ground. Well, almost unconscious. The blue hedgehog was moving slightly, because he was slowly regaining consciousness. Knuckles was sitting down next to Sonic. The red echidna was looking down at the blue hedgehog. Sonic was much more obviously beat up than Tails was. Knuckles also looked like he had lost a fight. Before anyone could add anything else, Sonic opened his eyes.
So where are we?
Sonic asked, while he was still regaining complete consciousness.
We're in the forest outside of town. Tails is Tom and Maddie on the line, or whatever you call it.
Knuckles responded. Sonic sat up and turned toward Tails.
Hey, Tom and Maddie.
Sonic greeted.
Sonic, can you some answer? Who's this blackhead guy? Joe?
Maddie cut him off.
Are the three of you okay?
Maddie asked.
I can't feel much pain, so I'm fine.
Knuckles instantly replied.
I'm fine even though I was thrown through a window.
Tails responded from behind the camera.
I'm okay as well. It's perfectly normal to pass out when I use my full power for too long.
Sonic's tone of voice worried him. It seemed to bother Maddie as well.
Are you sure you're okay?
Maddie asked. Sonic nodded. Tom turned to look at Maddie.
I really need to ask him some questions about what happened and figure out what's wrong with Sonic later.
He stated, a little politely so the three animals wouldn't hear him. Maddie nodded in understanding. He turned back to his phone.
Sonic, you know who the black hedgehog is?
He asked, as calmly as he could. Sonic was silent for a moment.
His name is Shadow the Hedgehog. He looks almost exactly like me. He also knows each of my attack moves precisely. Can even match my moves perfectly, and something about him. Never mind. Not important.
Sonic stood up. Tails flipped the screen back around.
I'm going to hang up now. Expect our house to be ruined again.
Tails stated, before he hung up.
Sonic, you can have your phone back now.
Tails handed Sonic's phone to the blue hedgehog. He grabbed it wordlessly. Sonic suddenly ran off. Back in the backyard of the Wachowskis' house, Shadow was still unconscious. One of Robotnik's drones flew into the yard. A claw extended out of the drone and grabbed the unconscious hedgehog. The drone flew out of the yard. Agent Stone was currently in his new base. He got a new one specifically to hide Shadow. The black hedgehog was resting in a horizontal capsule that was backed up against a wall. Stone examined one of Shadow's grills. It was one of Shadow's black ones. There wasn't any electricity sparking off of it at the moment. After a few minutes, Shadow regained consciousness. The black hedgehog was currently sitting on top of the closed capsule. Soon turned to
Why didn't you destroy the blue hedgehog?
he asked.
I don't take orders. Besides, the Master Emerald is more valuable.
Shadow responded. The Master Emerald, of course. Why didn't he just think of that?
How close did you get to taking it?
He asked, a little eagerly. Shadow shrugged.
Are you saying that you didn't get it?
He asked. Shadow nodded. The black hedgehog began to at least scratch his right ear with his right hand. Shadow's expression was difficult to read, but it seemed a little more thoughtful or sadder than usual. He slowly approached the hedgehog. At first glance, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with Shadow's ear.
Are you okay?
He asked, a little quietly so he didn't startle Shadow too badly. Shadow's right ear twitched. The black hedgehog brought his hand back down.
What? Other side if you want to be quiet.
Shadow responded. Other side if you want to be quiet. What kind of response was that? Soon walked around to Shadow's left side.
Are you okay?
He asked again, once again quietly.
I'm fine. I'm thinking.
Shadow replied. That was so strange. Something was wrong with Shadow. He figured that if this was something serious, then he should try to deal with it as soon as possible.
Why did you tell me to move to your other side?
He asked.
Because I'm half deaf in my right ear.
Shadow responded. As he reached up to scratch his right ear again, half deaf, he needed to check the files for that later. He walked back to the screen, with Shadow's scroll laying on the table in front of it. He was first going to test something. After he grabbed one of Sonic's quills that was in storage, he started the test. He held Shadow's quill in his left hand, Sonic's quill in his right hand, and touched the two of them together. There was a massive purple electric explosion that shot out of the quills. The power was knocked out. The purple blast shot across the planet. It was double the size that Sonic's blue explosion was. It was too dark to see anything in the base, except for the glow of the two quills. Son pulled the two quills apart from each other. He turned around. Shadow was glowing red with some electricity radiating off of him. It was mostly his red stripes and red eyes that were glowing. Shadow's hands were on his head. The glowing hedgehog could see familiar events flash through his mind. Sonic, the Echidnas, the science lab, Maria. His eyes immediately took on a threatening glare.
Why did you do that? Why did you dare remind me of that day?
He snapped, in a near shout. He could really make out Stone's expression. He clenched his fists at his sides. He stomped closer to the human.
How dare you remind me of Maria's, you pathetic human?
He shouted. Song was obviously backing up slowly. He could hear the human take a few steps back.
Answer me,
he demanded. When Stone didn't respond, he planned on shouting again, but something suddenly hit him in the arm. He glanced down at his right arm to find what looked like some kind of bullet. He began to feel a little dizzy. Shadow soon found himself fainting forward again. At the Wachowski house, everyone was discussing the recent explosion, except for Sonic. It had seemed like it was going to be a discussion about the house and what to do next, until there was that purple explosion. Sonic had run up to the roof and insisted that everyone let him alone. Sonic was glowing blue with some electricity radiating off of him. His eyes were also glowing blue. His large rings were still on, so this seemed a little off. He suddenly saw foreign, yet somehow familiar, events flashed through his mind. A much younger Shadow, Echidnas, then the familiar event of Longclaw and leaving for Earth, the loneliness, Tom, and then every event until he saw the events of recently. He had definitely met Shadow before. He was barely aware of the word that escaped his mouth.
Brother,